So before we even get started on Learning Target 12, I need you to fill out all of this information. I will explain what everything is in a second, but go ahead and fill it out. There's a table on the front of your notes and the back of the front page of your notes. That table, this exact table, I will give to you on your next quiz and on the next test, because the red sheet has things in a different format and that gets confusing. So I will give this to you. So have it in your notes so you can use it for your homework and that you're familiar with it for what's on the quiz and the test. Is that a what or a what? A 4. It's okay. It's all right. It's a 4. It's all good. While people are finishing up writing everything down, I'm going to talk about what everything is. So there's only one squared term in both of these because of the parabola. And so you shouldn't have to worry about if it's vertical or horizontal. It shouldn't be that difficult. It just depends on what the squared term is. So you have y squared here. You have x squared here. And you have the picture. I'm giving this exact same table on your quiz. So do the picture to help you figure out if it's vertical or horizontal. But that's y squared, it's horizontal. And if it's x squared, it's vertical. In the picture, you have the vertex, and you have the focus. There's only one focus. So there's no foci, there's not two of them. Focus is just a singular. There's one focus. It's always inside the parabola. Right? So if you graph the focus, then you know you're going to open it in the right direction. Right? Because it's always inside the parabola. You have the axis of symmetry that goes straight through the middle. Then you have what's called the directrix that's perpendicular. If you draw in the directrix, then that's also another way to make sure you draw it the right direction because your parabola shouldn't cross it. Okay? Then you have, in all of these little formulas, have P. Right, you have P here, there's a P and a P. Right? P is two things. Both things, they're the same thing. The distance between the vertex and the focus. Or you can think about it as the distance between the vertex and the directrix. The same distance. Right? So P is the distance between the vertex and the focus, or the vertex and the directrix. They're both the same distance. You'll need that for Learning Target 13. Any questions on what any of those things are? Then in Learning Target 12, all we're doing is we're taking an equation that's either in standard form or it's in general form, and we're rewriting it to make it match standard form. But then we're going to find all of the information, the vertex, the focus, axis of symmetry, the directrix, and then we're going to graph it. Just like we did with all the other conic sections. I think these are easier, they're less work. They're just different than what we've been doing. All right, so Learning Target 12. We've got two examples that are in standard form already. Well, close to standard form. For the first one, I have x squared equals 12 times y minus 1. You should be able to tell me right now if it's horizontal or vertical. Vertical. Right, if it's x squared, it's going to be vertical. So I already know that. I already know that it's going to open up or down. In order to find all the missing pieces and to graph this, this is almost in standard form. Very close. But the number that's been factored out here always needs to be in the form of 4 times something so that we can have what p is. Okay, this is pretty easy to rewrite, but we just need to make sure it's in that format. So 12 is the same thing as 4 times what? 3. So I need to make sure I have it written that way, so that way I know what p is. So the 3 is p. If I don't have it written that way, then you're going to use the wrong number for p. Does that make sense? All right, then we're just going to go through, and I'm going to go straight through the table, and I'm going to find all of these things, and then I'm going to graph it. Okay? So, for the vertex, we have HK. H should be with the X, and K should be with the Y. Again, in this equation, just like every other equation for a conic section, you have X minus H and Y minus K. So make sure you're paying attention to the same thing. So, what's the vertex for this parabola? 0, 1. Questions about where that came from. For the focus, you have H, K plus P. Well, we already have H and K. We already know what P is. The focus should be at 0. Well, it's 1 plus 3. 4. Questions about that? The axis of symmetry. Is it X equals H? So X equals 0. We already have H and K up here, so I'm using every time. Again, I'm following the table straight from your notes. Going straight down the list. The directrix is that Y equals K minus P. Well, K is 1, P is 3, so what's 1 minus 3? -2. Then the last part just says, is this going to open up or down? So is P greater than 0 or less than 0? P is greater than 0, so it's going to open upward. Again, I went straight down the list from the table in your notes. Any questions about any of that? So now I'm going to graph this. The vertex is at 0, 1. So that's right here. That's my vertex. The focus is at 0, 4. That's my focus. The axis of symmetry should go through those 2 points. X equals is a vertical line, so make sure you remember that. So X equals 0 is the axis of symmetry, and it goes right through here. The directrix is y equals -2. An equation of y equals a constant is a horizontal line. So y equals -2. And this is going to ensure that I graph my parabola in the right direction. I'm not asking you, for what we're doing in this section, to graph the parabola exactly. I'm not asking you to find other points or anything. We could. I could tell you to substitute values in for x and to find other points on the parabola. I'm not asking you to do that. All I want you to do is draw the parabola shape in the right direction with the vertex in the middle. Okay? So I'm not even asking you to determine how wide or narrow they are, because it really doesn't matter at this very moment about what we're doing. I just want you to get the general idea. Right, you guys have used parabolas before. We do have quadratic equations. You know how to graph them. So I'm not really worried about that. So we know this one's opening up. We know the vertex is right here. So you should have a parabola that generally goes this direction. Questions about the first example? Before I erase any of it. All right, on the second example, I need to do a little more work in order to get it in the standard form, but it's not a big deal. Again, you should be able to tell me if it's horizontal or vertical right now. The left-hand side is fine, y squared, that's fine, y minus 0 squared, whatever. I need to work on the right-hand side of the equation so that it matches the format it needs to be in. It's supposed to be in the format of y minus k squared equals 4 times p times x minus h. All right, so I need to work on the right-hand side. I have to get the x by itself, which means I have to factor it out, something out. So what do I need to factor out on the right-hand side? The 8. Right, well, I can just do, for now, I'm just going to factor out the 8. So it leaves x plus what on the inside of the parentheses? Now we're getting there, and then like Nolan said, we need to change that 8 to be 4 times something. And so 8 is 4 times 2. So again, now I know that P is 2. That's why we have to do that. It's important to follow all these little pieces. Vertex, focus, all that. So you know what P is. When I factored the 8 out of both of these, if you factored 8 out of 48, you get 6. 8 times 6 is 48. Other questions about how I got to this format of the equation? All right, then again, I'm going to go straight through the list on your table to find all of the pieces. Be careful with your vertex so you put it in the right order. The vertex is HK. So what is the vertex for this example? -6, 0. Make sure you watch the signs, right? So the original equation has a negative in it, and I have a positive in my equation, so that means the 6 is negative. All right, the next thing on the list is the focus. And it's supposed to be h plus p comma k. So h is -6, p is 2. So what's -6 plus 2? -4. The next thing is the axis of symmetry. It's supposed to be at the line y equals k. So y equals what in this case? 0. The directrix is supposed to be at x equals h minus p. H is negative 6 and p is 2, so it's negative 6 minus 2. Negative 8. And then is p positive or negative? P is positive, so that means this is going to open to the right. Okay, I went straight through the table in your notes. May as well do it that way since you get that table on the quiz. So if we graph this, the vertex at negative 6, 0, a focus at negative 4, 0. We already know it's going to open to the right, and we know that for sure, again, because the vertex is going to open up towards the focus. Focus is going to be inside. The axis of symmetry is at y equals 0. That's the x-axis. The directrix is at x equals negative 8. And we're just going to draw in that we know that it's opening to the right. I'm not going to worry about how wide or narrow it's going to be at the moment. We could put values in for x to figure that out if we needed to. Questions about that? All right. Then the end of learning target 12, I'm not going to do all the graphing and things that it asked me to do. I'm just going to rewrite the equations. So here we have an equation in general form. We need to write it in standard form, just like every single other conic section that we've done. In order to do that, we complete the square. This should be easier because we have to do it one time instead of two, because there's only one squared part. Again, looking at the equation right now, you should be able to tell me if it's horizontal or vertical. So for the first example, is this horizontal or vertical? And why? Vertical because the x is squared. Now these are a little bit different from the other conic sections because you're only squaring one part. So in this case, we're going to keep all of the x's together on the left-hand side. I'll remove everything else to the right-hand side, right? Because that's how standard form looks like. We have one variable on one side and the other on the other. So I've got x squared plus 8x. Then I'm going to subtract the 4y and the 8. So I have equals negative 4y minus 8. Everyone understand why we did that? Again, I need that front part to be in the format of x minus h squared. So I need to complete the square like we've been doing. So how do I complete the square? How do I get this number? 8 divided by 2 squared, so that's 4 squared is 16. And you still add that to both sides. So if we factor the left-hand side, we get x what? Squared. Plus 4 squared. And on the left-hand side, we have negative 4y plus 8, because negative 8 plus 16 is positive 8. Now we're sort of in the boat that we were on the last page, beginning learning target 12, but we need to make sure they're in the right format with 4 times the value, so we have p and all that jazz. So we have to factor a little bit more. So I need to get y by itself, so I have to factor out the negative 4. So you take out a negative 4, so what's left over inside the parentheses? Y minus 2. Watch your signs. And then the last little bit here, we want to make sure we have 4 times p, positive 4 times p. So what is p in this case? Negative 1. I'm not going to go through and find the vertex and the focus and the lines and all that right now. We just did 2 of those. So I'm assuming we could do some more, right? Just make sure you get that general form into standard form. Questions about how I did that? Then you can do the second one. And I'm going to freeze the screen and I'm going to work on it. And then you can see if you can get what I get. Of course, last hour I messed it up, but that's okay. I have mine on the screen if you want to compare. If you have questions, let me know. Any questions? The only things that I will caution you about, the ones I've done today are all nice and neat, or the P ends up being, there's some obvious choice for P. I'm going to make up an equation real fast. Let's say we have x plus 7 squared equals y minus 5. I can't factor a 4 out of y minus 5. Technically, there's a 1 in front of here, right? And so if I'm trying to get 1, that would be 4 times a fourth, right? So P would be a fourth. So there is a way to figure these things out. Or if I had, instead of just y minus 5, I had a 2 out front, right? Well, 2 isn't 4 times an integer value, but it is 4 times a half, right? So you can have fractional values for P as well. So that might show up in the homework a little bit. Just want to throw that out there, because I know the juniors aren't going to be here tomorrow. Questions on anything we talked about today?